laptops. We never worry what will happen to the laptop after 5 years will be replaced with a new laptop. We just give it to someone who comes, gives us 500 rupees, we give it to them. What he does with it, what. It's only a finance company. I mean, a lot of issues will be there. How much green finance products it has launched. Or its credit portfolio, what is the impact on ESG in turn they are having? Reverse of supply chain, in the forward linkage, what impact they are having? Or what is the financial inclusion? A poor man, can he go and take finance from that company? All these issues may not come in a mining company or a technical company or textile company. They are all different. So, a generic ESG, while very useful because a lot of issues are common. Ethics will be governance will be common. Some social issues, diversity, inclusion, all this will be common. Environmental issues, many will be common. But it fails when we go make a deep dive. What we end up with are what we call in mathematics, arithmetic, highest common denominator. What is common across all sectors, we take it and then leave it. And bigger danger in that was that it leads to missed priorities because since it's a generic thing, it may lead to both type 1 and type 2 errors. You may focus on things which are not relevant to your organization, and you may not focus on things which are very relevant to your organization because it's not there covered in depth in your generic thing. And it's risk for the organization itself. So, because you don't know, ESG I always say is beneficial to a company because it covers your various external risks which a company may face when it starts operation. So you won't be knowing what are the risks if you only follow the generic ESG, and the board will be deprived of vital information in taking decisions. So when this textiles thing, I think we started with textiles, the ready-made garments. So that was very useful. I thought in future also this will go and each sector should have a separate ESG. That is one of our roadmaps which we had said should be there. Each sector should have its own ESG. And ISCA as a technical institution can structure it and let the regulators adopt it as and when it becomes acceptable. So that's what I think thought.
Thank you, sir. So now, moving to the backbone of this discussion, Shankar, you have been, as always, standing behind at the last seat, but pushing this agenda since years now, and from NVGs to NCRBC and this sector-specific thing. So, and we do have a global frameworks which are sectoral. So, what is your opinion about how this is going to help businesses? Because ultimately it has to be, for the ease of doing business. How it is going to influence the investors' perspectives. If you can share your points, please.
Sure. Thanks, Garima. And I think I just want to start by saying that, you call me the backbone, but I think there are several backbones in the room here, and we need to recognize them. I mean, yourself included, Yaneshwarji included, Viraf, Bharat, so there are plenty of people, and that's how guidelines of this kind need to be created, right? It cannot be two people sitting in a room and doing the needful. So I think it's important to recognize the sort of thought and the wisdom that was sort of collectively got to put this together. But I think the perspective also was important in terms of where we were coming from. So if we were saying that we were, as a Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and I'm saying we in the sense that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs was driving this. And the Ministry of Corporate Affairs is a regulator of companies. It's not a regulator of a sector of companies. So it is only natural that what comes out of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs would be generic. It cannot be specific because that then goes into the subjects of different ministries and so on and so forth. So it had to be generic. But when it was created, as many of you familiar with NCRBC know, the intention always was that it needs to lead to sectoral guidelines. So it was by design that sectoral guidelines need to be an integral part of all this. And the reason for that is what Praveenji said. I mean, the logic of it was exactly what he said, that it cannot be a one-size-fits-all. It was never designed to be a one-size-fits-all. And if you look at just the architecture of the National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct and the NBG's architecture is very similar. I mean, it answers basically two questions that you said. So what constitutes responsible business conduct? Because it's one, we need to be sustainable, we need to be responsible, but what does that mean? So it tries to answer that question in those 9 principles. The second thing it tries to do is to say, as a company, it answers a question that a company has. So what do I need to do as a company? And that is what you find in the core elements of the NCRBC. The core elements are actions that companies need to take. Now, moment you tie that in with what Praveenji said, which is that the actions of a mining company will have to be different from that of an automotive company, of an ITS company, then the sectoral guidelines become inevitable. So I think that is the sort of journey that almost requires no great thought. It has to happen that way. Now let's also look at disclosures, and I think it's also important to put disclosures in the context of what the thinking was at the guidelines stage. I don't think when we were looking at the guidelines and the disclosures, the BRR and the BRSR, we were necessarily saying, let's create a disclosure framework that the companies can show to the outside world. That is certainly one of the objects, but it was also an objective that it has to be the mirror so that the company itself can know where it is, how it is doing. So it is both the mirror and the window, and that was the two elements to it. So the window bit of telling the world outside how you're doing, all your stakeholders, was important. Now, and that is, if you tie it in with your question, Garima, about investors. Now, if you look at how investors think about and go about their business, and we had one whole session yesterday with a whole bunch of people from the sustainable finance world. But you know, if you look at how investors think about all of these things, in business language we call it risks and opportunities. But as an investor once told me, and people may have heard me say this a million times, the way this investor described risks and opportunities was fear and greed. Okay? And they are very clear that fear or risk is something that they are concerned about because it obviously impacts their investment. And therefore, they look at responsible business conduct, sustainability, all of these as something that provides a source of risk. Now, moment you see it from that risk opportunities framework or the fear and greed framework, what an investor is trying to do is to tell its companies to sort of look at risks and look at opportunities and behave in that particular manner, so that not because it wants to save the world, but because it wants to save its own investment. Right? Now, moment is trying to do that. It is then trying to sit with all its investing companies and trying to tell them this is what we expect you to do and so on. The guidelines help them do that. And a sectoral guidelines makes it much easier for them, makes it much more efficient for them. And even that sectoral guideline comes with a sectoral reporting that happens, then the whole process for the investor becomes more efficient. So when you have a country like India which has sectoral guidelines, and an investor is saying, I have investees who are falling into these various sectors and they are aligning themselves with those guidelines and reporting according to a sectoral reporting framework, their own energy doesn't go in trying to just educate, build awareness, analyze, mine data, but goes into more productive actions. So it's a win-win. It's a win for the company, it's a win for the investor, it's therefore a win for the country. So to me, it's just an obvious thing, but like all obvious things which tell you in the face, you still need to, go sit back, see it from a distance, and then align it. So that's really how I look at it.
Thank you, indeed. Now let me move to Greg. Greg is online with us, and Greg is an executive director of ACNI, Access to Nutrition Initiative. Greg, ACNI and IICA and GAIN has already collaborated on the research related to workforce nutrition and responsible practices. So what are your insights that how this specific work can shape the sector-specific guidelines, particularly for the food and beverage industry, to improve business conduct as well as public health outcomes in India? Over to you, Greg.
Thank you for having me virtually. I do hear a bit of an echo, but I hope that you all hear me fine. It's an honor to be here and to be able to answer that very important question. We've been working in India for 2 years as ATNI, and on this very topic. Also had worked previously at GAIN, and of course now we're collaborating together with IICA as well as other stakeholders, including SEBI, to see if we can integrate nutrition metrics into the ESG agenda there in India. For us at ATNI, this is our mission. Our mission is to ensure that markets are transformed for nutrition, and currently there are no countries which have formally required food and beverage industry to disclose information on nutrition. But we're getting very close. I wanted to start by answering your question with a global snapshot and then move to India. Globally, we just had the S&P Global Corporate Assessment Framework add nutrition metrics, and specifically the ones ATNI have been pursuing into its framework. And so that's creating a situation where multinational food companies are now asking us for advice on how to report on the healthiness of their food portfolios, as well as how they market more responsibly to children. Now, in terms of India, we've had an exciting 2-year journey where I think we've learned a number of things about nutrition metrics. The 3 features that we believe are really important to ensure the food and beverage industry can integrate nutrition as a material would be, it has to be simple, because the industry already has heavy burden of reporting, so we need to get this quite simple for nutrition. It has to be meaningful for health impact. This is not just about disclosing information for disclosure's sake. It has to show that it will lead to substantial changes for nutrition. And we don't want to have too many metrics. We've settled on 3. The 3 are workforce nutrition, so the discussion that we've already had here. This is industry agnostic, so not only is this for food and beverage manufacturers, but any multinational company or Indian company operating in India. We have been working to ensure that they report, for example, on the number of plants or number of offices that are providing healthier food options to the workforce. And this improves productivity for the company. It of course improves the health of the employee. And it's really a no regret type of decision for everybody. It's a win-win. The other 2 metrics that we're working on is disclose the healthiness of your portfolio if you're a food and beverage manufacturer or a retailer. This means add up the sales that are derived from healthy products versus unhealthy products, give that information to investors, give it to policymakers, make it available transparently. And the third one is responsible marketing practices. And this is where we're saying food companies should follow the WHO, the World Health Organization's guidelines. And firstly, make sure that you define a child as someone who is all the way up to 18 years of age. Sometimes you see food companies have it cut off at 14. No, it's all the way up to 18 years of age. And then make a commitment to not market unhealthy foods to those children, including on digital channels, which is often where we see a lot of loopholes exploited through gaming and the various ways you can especially influence children who enjoy video games, like my son, who's 15 years of age. So those are the 3 metrics: healthiness of the company portfolio, responsible marketing, and workforce nutrition. And we hope to continue on this journey there in India, working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. It's very helpful. Let's now move to from the food and beverage to the automotive sector, and we have Mr. Vinny Mehta, DG of ACMA. And we all were even since morning talking about the ESG challenges varies a lot, even with respect to the decarbonizing also there was a discussion happening. How you feel that these sector specific guidelines, can help the automotive specific challenges and promote responsible and competitive business practices.
Thank you, Garima, for having me. And I must compliment you guys for doing a great job. Very happy to be engaged in the exercise of doing the BRSRs for the automotive industry with you guys. And I was also very happy when in the keynote address, Miyamoto-san talked about the automotive sector. In fact, Miyamoto-san, we are meeting your team sometime next week, and we want to work together with them to make an intervention in the automotive sector. So for the audience, is for you to understand what this big animal, the automotive sector in India is all about. The entire automotive sector, the vehicle industry and the component industry taken together is around a $200 billion industry. It's close to 6% of our economy. We provide employment to 35 million people. And I guess that's the reason we need to talk about BRSR for this industry. And while the vehicle industry is sort of, if I may say, well-resourced and has better business practices, the auto component industry that I come from, again, is a very large industry. It's a close to $80 billion industry today, with 5 million, 50 lakh people in direct employment. But interestingly, the value chain in the automotive, which is essentially the auto component industry, is a very long and winding one. We have tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, and sometimes tier 4s. And as you progressively go down the tiers, in the sense tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4, you know, the companies become smaller and smaller in size. We are hugely dominated by small and medium enterprises. While on hand, we are extremely proud that we are a great success story of small and medium enterprises, but we are not without our set of challenges, especially looking at a whole lot of ESG issues, safety issues, and I guess a framework such as the BRSR is extremely important for the automotive industry. At least you have a framework to map yourself with and to begin with. I would like to believe, because a lot of the tier 1s are all listed companies. We have around 125 odd auto component suppliers that are listed. To an extent, I would like to believe that they have good business practices, probably following all the 9 tenets that you have referred to. But as we go down progressively, the industry is extremely vulnerable. We did hear about the accident that happened in Telangana. Okay, I mean that's a fairly large company, but again, I shudder and I believe that there was really no sort of safeguards in that sense. And then we also, Sivakasi is so famous for so many accidents that we hear, but thankfully these are not automotive. But having said that, I think compared to the rest of the sectors, we're relatively well off because, we are a very tiered in a pyramid structure, and on top of the value chain is the vehicle manufacturer, and they are extremely brand conscious, and in some sense they play a very crucial role in monitoring the entire value chain or the supply chain. But then you can do only so much. The problem is that in our country, it's a culture, and then we say sab chalta hai, and we're not. The least sabse sasti cheez jaan hai, and we don't care about it. You have an aircraft crash, and 2 weeks down the line, it's out of the newspapers. So in terms of challenges, I would say one. When you look at the small and medium enterprises, there are challenges on resources. Probably a framework is available. A lot of the feedback is that it's too humongous for them to comply with. one of the speakers said that can we make it simpler? But again, how much do you dilute? That's a question, okay? I guess, the auto industry is extremely comfortable in working with standards like, say, ISO 14001, ISO 50001. But then beyond these two standards, we haven't done much when it comes to energy standards or any other. The BRSR does not recommend standards, it alludes to standards. So maybe in some sense, if we were to create a strong linkages, because let's say, the concept of quality has undergone a huge change in our industry. At one point in time, it was a cost, but now quality implementation, nobody even questions it. It's just like water that sort of is absorbed into the whole system. Somewhere we need to sort of break this mindset that concepts of ESG or BRSRs are implementation of whatever it takes for a BRSR is a cost, okay? It is eventually for the good of the company, happy employees lead to better productivity. Those things need to be brought home as an association. We have around 8 or 9 programs. I wasn't aware of this. Preparing for this, I asked we have a team that makes intervention to the shop floors. So we have 9 such programs that are running today that make interventions into the companies. And I guess, the mandating of the BRSR through the value chain probably is now putting pressure on everybody. It was tier OEMs, they're putting pressure on tier 1s now putting on pressure too. So I think some of that has started to make a positive impact, but again, we are far from being home. It's a long and arduous journey. I do not know how we sort of hasten it, quicken it, but I think we will need many hands and arms to sort of push this agenda. But then we will begin, and thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, and indeed, like all 3 speakers have said, that it's a win-win-win for everyone. Let me again go back to the health and nutrition, to Tarun. You were at the Helm of Affairs as a former India Country Director of a GAIN, and again, we have collaborated together with ACME, GAIN, and the mind, okay. So what do you feel that, what are the major challenges, sector-specific challenges I'm asking, which businesses are facing to integrate workforce nutrition and the broader health consideration? And also, if you can please share that, how can we embed these ESG or responsible business strategies, particularly to, make business accountable for it?
Thank you, Garima. Very enlightening discussion. I love the perspective that Nishiko-san brought. Being from the automotive sector in the last life, I was very interested in hearing what ACMA had to say. Shankar gave us a very broad perspective. I want to focus on the workforce nutrition in particular. That is the work we have been trying to promote globally through the Consumer Goods Forum, Workforce Nutrition Alliance, and in India, along with UNICEF, through the Impact of Nutrition Initiative, which has reached out to a broad cross-section of not only large but mid-sized companies as well, to try and see whether they can benchmark their existing workforce nutrition practices, and then specific to their industry context, what are the steps that they can take so that workforce nutrition becomes a guarantee in terms of enhanced productivity and well-being of the employee and contribute towards the Indian sustainability commitments, etc. We've recognized that while there is growing recognition of employee well-being within ESG strategies, workforce nutrition remains a bit under-prioritized. And there are 4 reasons. One, nutrition is often siloed within the HR or CSR sort of silos within organizations. And this entire integration across sustainability, employee health and safety, and human capital divisions, probably a little bit more integration needs to happen. Second is the whole lack of standardized metrics and data. Companies actually, lots of them are doing some wonderful workforce nutrition, workforce well-being practices, but in the absence of perceived short-term costs, and those include even well-intentioned sort of efforts. So in order to be able to sort of meaningfully integrate nutrition metrics into ESG, the principle 3 of the BRSR, employee well-being, is the most relevant. And nutrition has to be necessarily a subset of the employee health and well-being within the we recommend at least 4 categories of areas where reporting could happen, and this should be voluntary and it can be as simple as possible. One is access to healthy meals at work. Second is nutrition education and behavior change sessions. Third is public reporting on workforce health outcomes. And lastly, financial commitments towards employee nutrition. Some great practices are ongoing in India, and I think companies are waiting for some draft simple metrics that even existing best practice can be shared. We did some wonderful work with Unilever, Hindustan Unilever in India, across 110 tea gardens with 450,000 employees, and demonstrated measured health outcomes are quite appealing, quite exciting actually. So we keep saying, why does this story not sort of get publicized more? And this best practice on this one. So I thought in introductory remarks I could just highlight.
Thank you, Tarun. I mean, quickly, if I move to Mishiko, just with ILO's experience in supporting this NCRBC sector-specific challenges and best practices that you have observed, if you can share that, and how it is aligning this responsible business conduct with the international labor standards.
How do we align it? Yes, no, that's a question. I think we should utilize the existing platform as much as possible. There's a health platform, there's workers platform. So, for example, ILO is one of the platforms, International Labour Organization. We are tripartite. Tripartite meaning that industry employers association and workers organization and the government. So these are the tripartite consensus we work on. So, for example, we have a platform to work on sectorial guidelines. We have experts meeting regularly on updating on sectorial agreement guidelines, etc. So that's how we have global international consensus in terms of sectorial agreement. So that's also a good source of alignment of existing international agreement versus country agreement. And all the member states, industrial association, your country will send your experts to such meetings, and same from the workers' organization and also the government. So let's make sure that we use those resources, which is also useful at the national level, and very happy to contribute in any of the alignment exercise in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Then let me go back to Praveen sir. Sir, at the one side we all are talking that NCRBC and definitely the NCA made it, so it has to be generic. So how do you feel that the sector-specific ESG guidance, will it improve the quality, the consistency, and particularly the comparability